Welcome to the NonProfit Voice, a podcast series brought to you by NonProfit Pro, the go-to resource for nonprofit management and strategy. In each episode, we're going to sit down with leaders of nonprofit organizations, the people responsible for paving the way for our sector, along with key technology strategy partners who are transforming our industry. Here at the NonProfit Voice, we'll have refreshing conversations in which we will all learn more about the convergence of nonprofit and technology. Be sure to follow us on social media and visit our website to find more episodes of the NonProfit Voice. And you can download all of the NonProfit Voice episodes on iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify. We will have all the links down below. Hello, and welcome back to the NonProfit Voice. I am super excited to be back on the line with everybody today, and I hope everyone has been doing well and you had a great summer. And now that we're transitioning into fall, I hope, depending where you are staying cozy. In Philly, the temperatures have been up and they've been down. Last week, actually, it hit 90 degrees, and then the next day it hit 60 degrees. So that was a really big jump, and I don't really know how I feel about it. Global warming, am I right? But when this airs, I will be in the beautiful Costa Rica on vacation. So I'm super looking forward to that. All right, so enough small talk. Let's get into episode number 5. Today we have Moshe Hetch on the line, and he is the Chief Innovation Officer at Charity. Moshe, thank you so much for taking the time to join me on today's podcast. I'm happy to have you on. How have you been doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. So, before we get started, Moshe, I want our audience to get to know you a little bit. So why don't you tell us your background in the philanthropic sector?
Sure. So I am the Chief Innovation Officer of Charity.com. We are a crowdfunding platform and a fundraising consultancy. I joined the company in a private beta. The CEO and founder, his name is Yehuda Gurwitz. Him and I met while they had just launched a few campaigns, and I instantly fell in love with the product and with his vision. My background before that was in marketing. I worked for and helped found a few startups and branding companies, which I serviced a lot of nonprofits. And the plan and the vision and a little bit of success already that Charity had seen at that point was a perfect fit for me. And 6 years later, we have helped over roughly 4,000 nonprofit organizations across the globe raise north of $800 million through our different fundraising models. So it's been an exciting ride.
That's so cool. Congratulations. That's a huge number.
Thank you. Yes. We're going to be reaching $1 billion soon. And I tell our team, like even for us, $1 billion is a lot. We're very ambitious at Charity, but even for us, $1 billion is a lot of zeros.
For any kind of platform, that's a huge milestone, but it
Sure.
can only go up from there. So that's pretty cool to hear. Okay, so Moshe, you have a blog on NonProfit Pro called The Giving Revival, on which you call a sometimes too straight talking column that challenges the status quo giving practices, inspires new and radical solutions. And so on that blog, you recently wrote a 3-part series on something that you introduced to us as New Charity. And for people who are listening in, if you want to read more about that, I'm going to share the links for all 3 articles in the description below. So stay tuned for that. So to set the stage a little bit here, Moshe, and without trying to not get too overly controversial here, can you share your thoughts on how our political landscape right now is affecting nonprofits?
Sure. So, the country is divided more than I've ever seen in my lifetime. I'm not a history buff, but perhaps even pretty extreme throughout the history of the United States. I think that it's in many ways it's affecting things positively. I think people have cling toward their local organizations, kind of feeling hopeless about the government, and have cling toward the private sector and private philanthropy a lot more. So those are some of the positive things. Some of the negative things are, we did see in 2018 charity had kind of flatlined, and some theories are that is because of the new taxation. It's hard to say it really at this point, but the upside is that actually online giving in this climate has actually increased by some metrics, upwards of even 12% since 2018 compared to 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of positive things happening in this political climate. Um, my, essential point in this three-part um, article, aside for getting you guys to read three articles of mine, which seem to have worked to some degree, is that in this political climate, I think what is simultaneously has been happening, something like almost magical and something phenomenal that's been going on. And I think it's important to look at it in the context of the political climate. Okay. While I never get political in any of my articles, any of my talks, I'm all about impact. I'm all about philanthropy and seeing what we can do as opposed to trying to pick sides or trying to figure ourselves out within the political realm. Um, what I've experienced that I've seen and had and been a part of in the last 6 years of actually this three-part article is sort of a culmination of what I've seen. And here it is in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
So on the left, people, charity is not very popular on the left. That's no secret, right? So the left side of the aisle is, let's give the authority and let's give the control and let's give the ability for the government to take care of social issues by higher taxation and by more control and by larger government. And of course, there are upsides to that, downsides to that. The general, I would say, one upside to that is that the collective intelligence that the government has about the people, whether it be through the voting or through all the processes that they're able to collect intelligence, they do have in many ways a greater understanding of how money should be spent and how money should be invested. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The government has a pretty good, finger on the pulse of society. On the right side of the aisle, you have a different approach where let private philanthropists make those decisions. It's their money. Let them decide where it goes. And the upside of that is just giving more control to private people. The downside is that perhaps those people don't really have such a strong finger on the pulse of what society really needs and how money should be spent and where money should be allocated. What is a large philanthropist who, living in a wealthy community, what do they know about the simple people in the lower class communities or the middle class communities out in the in the inner cities and whatnot. So you have upsides and downsides to that. What has emerged as what I believe, because of so many, and this is no more theoretical, there are so many clear examples which I bring in the article, and I can talk about those, is that there is a new reality coming to surface. Okay, and that new reality is kind of the best of both worlds, the best of the right and the best of the left.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what is that reality? It is, let's call it a people-powered charity. Okay, so it is a transition from charity becoming this top-down agenda where very few philanthropists or foundations have control of charity, and the same thing goes with the government. Is that if harnessed properly, the voice of the people, agnostic to their political agenda or the political bureaucracy, right? Everybody's driven by what is the change they want to see. If harnessed properly, the power of the people can be used and utilized to solve problems way faster, way quicker, and many times way more efficiently than government. One example that I bring in the article is if you remember and this was pretty popular, and I wrote about it then. When the Trump administration started to really break down, crack down on the border, there was an organization that had until recently that was there to advocate and to help for the immigrants coming in from Mexico. They had recently, until that point, raised, I read some places under $1 million, or a little bit more than $1 million, or a few $1 million. Not much to be able to actually be able to do real change. And when you had a frustrated people in America, I think from all sides of the aisle, I think people were frustrated seeing those pictures and hearing those stories of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
The people, started by two random people, okay, not even affiliated with this nonprofit, went to Facebook and they started a small campaign trying to raise a very small amount, within the thousands.
Right.
Within days, this campaign raised, I don't even know where it's at today, what's saying, but the last time I checked, it was over $20 million.
Right.
Okay. Um, and that, so here you have a, the people, me and you knew, it's just like, this is like just regular people wanting
Mm-hmm.
to see a change,
Right.
which maybe perhaps 10 years ago, the processes they would have had to have gone through to be able to actually get that type of money into the hands of an organization that's local on the border that can actually start building cases and advocating for these families,
Mm-hmm.
happened within just days, raising millions and millions of dollars to help go for things. So if harnessed properly, okay, and there's a lot to talk about that and how we can harness, because there's a lot of campaigns that are going on the internet which are fraudulent and not harnessed properly. And I think with the, in the
Right.
infant stages of any type of revolution or any type of new thing, you have those people taking advantage of the system and whatnot. So that in the crux is my concept of new charity, a
Mm-hmm.
reality where the power of the people, properly harnessed, can solve issues quicker, faster, and more direct.
Yeah, I mean, when you sent over these blog articles, I was immediately interested because it's a different spin on what we've all seen. And we're living in this day to day political climate when we see this huge divide and we're not sure what to do about it. But the one thing that remains constant is that you see the power of people coming together and they can make a difference. And they could be completely different people, but they want to do good. And I think that's what nonprofits can capitalize on. So, you talk about harnessing the power of people. What are some ways for us to move forward to make that happen?
Right. So I think at the core, nonprofits are looking to solve problems,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in order to solve problems effectively, you need data.
Yes.
Okay, you need to understand um, what is the core of the issue, what is the core of the problem, and what's the best way to solve those problems, right? And that data can come from one of two places. It can either come from a few select people sitting in a room making assumptions, right? Or it can come through a process of data collection, where a few small people in a room making decisions based on mass data. Okay, so data comes in, you have data that can come from the masses, and without having the individuals who understand how to curate that data and how to make sense of that data. And then sometimes you have data coming from just a few individuals and making decisions top down. Both of those are not good solutions. Okay, the real solutions come from getting data from the masses, understanding what the people really want, where the people really want their money to go to,
Mm-hmm.
where the people feel that the best solution, like this particular program or this particular leader or this particular project, will be the best way to solve a problem. But then it can get chaotic and it can create chaos where it's like, okay, who is going to translate that data into actual solutions? So it's the combination of the big data and of the curating parties that are able to actually churn that data and convert that data into actual solutions. Now, what nonprofits are in a position to be those people, okay? They have access to the community. They have, or they should have, trust from the community. They have the infrastructure to solve problems, but perhaps until this new charity came along, they weren't able to actually garner the data from the crowd quick enough that they could actually make it actionable, right? So you can send out a survey that may take forever to get the results back. And by the way, someone clicking yes or no on a survey doesn't necessarily have as much weight as someone deciding to put their money towards a project.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so what I think that nonprofits can do is as follows. They can look at the power of this connected world that we live into today through their social media channels, through their email channels, through their even direct mail channels, and the integration of all those communication channels. And they could look at fundraising as not just a way to raise funds to cover their bills, but look at fundraising as a way to collect data. Okay, so when we give money to something new, right? If I'm going to put $5 towards something, right? That there's nothing shows more your commitment someone has to something is that if they actually put their money toward it,
Right.
right? So you can be, I'm so frustrated with this particular policy. I'm so frustrated with this. So it's like, well, are you ready to put your money to it? Well, no, I just like to complain, because that's, it's fun to complain. But if someone actually opens up their wallet and says, hey, you know what? I'm going to put 10,000. That is such quality data. So when nonprofits, when they're looking at like solving problems, look at your crowdfunding
Mm-hmm.
and look at your fundraising, and raising a little bit from a lot of people is so important today, utilizing crowdfunding, even if, and sometimes nonprofits like, why do I need to do crowdfunding? If I have 5 or 6 people who can solve this problem for me, why go out to the crowd?
Right.
Like, what do I need all that stress for? What anything? And I tell them, well, first of all, you cannot always rely on. I mean, there's obvious reasons why you won't always be able to rely on those 5 people. And there's more money in the crowd that you have not yet tapped into. But I think the most critical reason is because if you have a challenge in front of you, right? How do we solve the hunger problem in our community? How do we solve the homeless problem in our community? How do we solve the education problem in our community? Well, let's see what the people say, right? Propose a solution. Propose recommend. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the program. Here are the people who are going to lead it. Here's the budget. Here's the timeline thing. Put it online. Say, okay, it's going to cost us 50 grand. It's going to cost us 100 grand. Now, if that thing falls flat, there are 2 reasons why it would fall flat. You didn't prepare enough, right? Or you overestimated around your community. But assuming you have it all, you've properly estimated the capacity and the social equity that you're sitting on.
Mm-hmm.
Go out to the community, and even if you can raise it from small people, raise it from large people. Because if you have this $50,000 grant, $100,000 or $10 million or whatever it is, and 100 people put money toward it, or 1,000 people put money to it, you know what that tells you? It tells you that you are on the right path. It tells you that these people have read through your campaign. They've seen your solution. They've seen the people who are leading the solution. They trust that your solution is correct. And that is giving the power to the people. That is doing the power to the people. Now, the money goes to you. So now you are accountable and responsible to spend that money now properly, right?
Right.
It's the beautiful fusion of the power of the people and nonprofits that are going to solve this problem, because giving the power to the people, that can be very risky. So we see that on a lot of personal cause campaigns and for medical causes, and that's a different conversation. There's a lot of conversation today about we have handing over the healthcare system, the broken healthcare system over to the people and into a GoFundMe campaign. That's a different conversation. I'm talking about solving nonprofit issues. Whenever you have a plan, you have to consider crowdfunding for the simple case that the people will come together and say, yes, we are backing your project with our money, or they're saying, you may have gotten it wrong this time. Maybe this may not be the solution. And that's new charity. That's new charity because, even if you can do it on your own,
Yeah.
possibly, or even if you're weighing the you know the upsides and downsides of like opening it up to scrutiny of the public, do it. Do it because the money that you're getting from them is many times going to be much more money than you've had before. But more than that, with every dollar is going to become information.
Mm-hmm.
With every dollar is going to become qualified vote of confidence for the trajectory that you are on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, so I wanna, you know, I agree with everything you said, and everything has been so great. And you really, talk about, the power of the people. But you did mention something earlier that I want to like kind of circle back to, which is pretty much like charity mistrust, right? We've heard the that case with the New Jersey couple with the GoFundMe scam. How can nonprofits make sure they avoid that kind of scenario? Because that could ultimately lead them down the wrong path.
So, by the way, New, you can argue. It's no fun if we just agree on everything.
It's
So,
true.
I implore you and urge you to find something to disagree on. Man, then things can get really heated here. Things can get exciting. Um, so for the listeners who maybe not familiar with this case, I mean, it's become such a famous case where it's really fascinating. It's like the new type of heist. It's the crowdfunding is now being used as the new criminal enterprise in many ways. It used to be. It's like they should come out with like an Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 12 of crowdfunding, like 12, 12 like tech nerds in a room, instead of it being like cool guys. Like it's the new heist should be like the techies, like
The hackers.
and the hackers, like they're the new but in all seriousness, so the crowd, right, and the immediacy of crowdfunding, and the psychology of people reacting emotionally to something is something that people are taking advantage of, right? This same tool that is being used to capitalize for good is being used to capitalize for bad, and that's everything. You can use one tool to plow a field and to grow trees and to grow, and you can use that same tool to fight no war.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that the lesson for nonprofits is same old. Everything that you're doing has to be fully transparent, making sure that you are using a secure platform, making sure that you are doing things with extra, scrutiny. What I always tell organizations when they're doing a crowdfunding campaign, it's like, think of it as like you're becoming from like a private company to a public company, right? So as a private company, basically you can do whatever you want. I mean, it's between you and your shareholders, and unless the IRS going to come do an audit, you can pretty much get away with a lot, and nobody's business what's going on in a private company. But when you become a public company, you have to go through that process of making sure that everything is spick and span. So I think it's a great opportunity for organizations to really clean house. But I think the question really is not on the nonprofits, because if the nonprofits is a legitimate nonprofit, they're not going to have a problem with this. I think the question really is on the donors, right? What are you and I, what is our checklist to make sure that we're giving towards causes that are not scams? Okay. And I think there's like there's a checklist of things that you need to look for. So first of all, the most important thing is platforms. Like some platforms are it's like anybody can do a campaign on that platform, and if a problem occurs, then it gets reported. So know your platform. Okay. So if you're giving on Facebook, or if you're giving on GoFund, this is in no way to downgrade any platform, but it's just the reality. They open it up for anybody at any time to be able to create a campaign, and if they get reported, then they have a very strict system of shutting things down. That's how this campaign was able to get through GoFundMe, because GoFundMe, their mantra is anybody and anyone could run a campaign. So you, as a consumer, you have to know your platforms. So there are platforms that are going to allow this, and if you see something on a platform that their rules are that yes, we will allow it until it's reported, do research, go into the campaign, see if it's, some platforms have certified, like as in like approved, right? See who the person is who is giving to the platform. um, a lot of times the biggest problems happen on early, like really, really early on the campaign. If like if there's a natural disaster and before people even have time to think about, like they just want to give money. So it's really on the consumer to do their research to make sure that that they are giving to something which is legitimate. I think there's less fear on the nonprofit space because there is more vetting that happens on platforms that specifically work with nonprofits. So your Crowd Rises and your Mighty Cause and your Razoo and Classy, these platforms you'll very, very rarely see a campaign, if not ever. I don't think I've ever heard a case from any of these, qualified nonprofit crowdfunding platforms that have ever had any type of scams. The
Mm-hmm.
scams are typically coming from the personal cause platforms. On our platform, on charity, we're very unique, and we're a service as well, and we're a consulting company. So it's nearly impossible for a non-legitimate campaign to get through our doors, simply because in addition to our vetting process and everything, we'll typically work with a nonprofit anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks before the campaign goes live, because of the entire training. And between those 4 to 12 weeks, if we know there's anything fishy going on, we'll catch it. We'll have met already
Right.
with like most of the people in the leadership, most of many of the volunteers, and if anything's fishy there, then we will catch it.
Okay, so this just gonna open another door to kind of a different route here. Talking about certified platforms like the ones you've already mentioned, where the cost to get on that is a little more expensive versus using a like a GoFundMe or a Facebook fundraiser. What are your thoughts on that?
So, is there a benefit for a nonprofit to use one platform over the other?
Yes.
Okay, so I wrote an article about this. I believe it was on Nonprofit Pro,
Mm-hmm.
which I is the only place I write for ever. Um,
Good to hear.
Very loyal. Um, um, so yeah, I mean there are tons of benefits. Well, first of all, you talk about like Facebook plat- fundraising. Facebook is not built for nonprofit fundraising.
Yeah.
For myriad of reasons. Number one, you can't even really nonprofit can't really tell their full robust story on a Facebook platform. They can't put up videos and descriptions, and they can't have peer-to-peer features. So I can rarely find a case for a nonprofit to use Facebook as a crowdfunding campaign. If they wanted to have someone in their community, a volunteer, raise funds for a birthday, or for an anniversary, and use Facebook fundraising, I would say that's okay, because it's great for peer-to-peer features. The second thing is that it's Facebook fundraising is stuck on Facebook. It's a closed environment. It's a closed platform. So if you wanted to go and do like a whole email marketing campaign or put it on other social networks, you can't. So you're very limited to that arena. Um, in regards to working with the more qualified platform for securities, I mean, yes, 100%. These platforms are built. There are platforms that are built specifically for nonprofits. That means that your security is so it's like top priority to them.
Mm-hmm.
And number one, number two, um, many nonprofits are international, so you're talking about multiple currencies and multiple languages. You don't want to start a platform with limitations, right? You don't
Right.
want to get onto a platform where if someone has a cousin in a foreign country in a foreign language, these many of these platforms are built for a global campaign. Um, And then there are the systems of security. From my experience, the nonprofit platforms have are very hands on. That if, let's say, someone started making like hundreds of $1 donations, where you started having like these hackers going in, and they're on top of that. So I guess the answer is like the first step that a nonprofit should do, to being concerned about security and being secured, is pick the right platform.
Yeah.
Like, pick the platform that services primarily nonprofits, um, because they know the challenges that nonprofits have. So yeah, and it's one of the reasons, by the way, by GoFundMe bought CrowdRise. GoFundMe, which is the most popular crowdfunding platform,
Yeah.
um, I mean, by far. I mean, they've surpassed everybody by billions, literally. Um, they realized that they weren't focused on the nonprofit enough, and they had nonprofits starting to use them, and you started having these issues. So they bought CrowdRise, and CrowdRise has a wonderful history of of servicing the nonprofit community, and now they're able to do both. So if you go to GoFundMe today, they're going to ask you, are you a personal cause or are you a nonprofit?
Right.
And if you're a nonprofit, they're going to push you towards using CrowdRise.
Promise. Yeah. Very cool. All right, so we are kind of like nearing the end of our time limit for today, but I wanted to, close it up, and maybe you could give 3 quick takeaways from today for our audience.
Ooh, three quick takeaways.
Only three, Moshi.
Read. First quick away is read my first article. Second quick way is read my second part of the article. The third, I'm just kidding. Here's okay. Quick takeaway number one. In crowdfunding, here's one point that I always like to make. Crowdfunding, number one, is not just for the micro givers. Okay, crowdfunding, if to be used to its full effect, needs to involve all level givers. It is no longer something that you give to um, an intern that just came into the thing. Hey, let's see what we can get from the younger demographic. No, it's something that can be built in to cover 20, 30, even 50, 60% of your annual budget. You can do that by approaching crowdfunding in the way that crowdfunding is for all of my constituents, and whether that means using the major donors as matching gifts, right, or bundling your mid-tier givers to be a match as well, and then obviously the last component. So crowdfunding is for everyone. Okay, that's takeaway number one. Takeaway number two is that crowdfunding and a new charity is not just a way to raise more money, but in fact, it is a way to approach solving the problems in your nonprofit in a more qualified way, by getting the community to come together, brothers and sisters in arms, to solve problems with a little bit of their funds. And you will be able to solve the problems in your nonprofits so much faster, so much smarter, by involving your people in your fundraisers. Okay. Um, Number three is think big. Okay. I think that if anything, the ability of new charity gives nonprofits the ability to really think big, right? Approach your next fundraiser. Well, we have a list of 10,000 emails, but we've only been getting a 2% conversion rate. But if we do and plan a crowdfunding campaign properly, and we bring in the right partners and we plan ahead, we're able to really, really think big. I have worked with nonprofit organizations that have come to us who have had a history of raising $1 million a year. And when we went into their database and saw the untapped potential of their 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years of fundraising. And they said, well, if we plan a proper crowdfunding campaign, whether it be schools with decades, years of alumni, right? That's really the best example. Crowdfunding gives you the ability to think big. It gives you the ability to say, if we can tap into these people, we can get a little bit from a lot of these people within our constituents that we've serviced for so many years, but we haven't given them an exciting enough reason to participate, crowdfunding gives you that opportunity to think big.
I love it. Awesome. Well, Moshi, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much again for taking the time to join me on this call and talking to me and our audience about New Charity and your giving your insights on it.
Thank you very much, New. It's a pleasure.
All right. So before I let you guys go, I wanted to take this time to tell you about a conference that NonProfit Pro is hosting on November 4th and 5th. It's called Peer-to-Peer Advanced, and we're going to be bringing you next level thinking to help you boost your current and future peer-to-peer campaigns. We've got some awesome people coming out from organizations such as Susan G. Komen, ALS Association, National Alliance on Mental Illness, USA for UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, Make-A-Wish America, and so many more. I think you get the point. And this is all taking place in the heart of Philadelphia, Old City. So if you want to learn more about the conference, you can visit p2p.nonprofitpro.com. I'll put that link down below, and I'll even put a special discount code from me to you. So check it out, and I hope to see you next month. All right. Well, that wraps it up for today's episode. I want to thank you for listening on today's podcast. So on behalf of NonProfit Pro, we'll see you in the next episode of the NonProfit Voice. Have a great day.